We're checking in with Broncos Country Tonight's Benjamin Allbright, who is down in Alabama for this year's Senior Bowl. Just to start off, Ben, this is the first time scouts are seeing the players in person this year, and will be probably one of the few opportunities to see them. With the cancellation of the combine, not being able to visit the facilities. Do you think that this year's Senior Bowl will maybe carry more weight than other years?
I do. I think it's infinitely more valuable this year simply because of that. The fact that, in scouting, so much of getting to know a player is literally getting to know them. You can look at tape and you can see if a guy can play, but the question is, does this guy have the work ethic in the locker room? Is he going to be a good teammate? Those kinds of things I think get overlooked. And this event is invaluable to being able to determine that. Scouts have not been able to go to these universities because of COVID. They're not going to have the combines and the pro days the same way they normally do. And so this is one of those rare opportunities, and great teams take advantage of opportunities like that.
Yeah, no, I know you've been going to the Senior Bowl for a couple of years now. Since you've been down there this year, how has it been different than maybe previous years due to COVID?
I think this year from the media side of the house, it's a little more sparsely attended. I think in terms of procedures, it's a little bit different now. Part of that is because they've changed locations. They changed from Lad People Stadium, where it's normally been, over to the South Alabama campus. And so they've got the media and the teams a little more segregated than they normally would be. So that's a little bit different. But internally, I talked to Jim Nagy, who's the director of the Senior Bowl, for a bit yesterday, and he talked about some of the procedures they've got in place with the COVID testing and trying to keep guys isolated and everything else. There's just a lot less access for media this year than there normally would be, but teams are still getting that access.
Well, I know it's still early in the week, but what are your thoughts on some of this year's top prospects? Who's kind of stood out early on down there?
Well, there's a pair of receivers. I know the Broncos aren't exactly looking for receivers right now since we've got kind of a log jam at the position. There's a pair of receivers look pretty good. I thought Eskridge looked pretty good yesterday. Tyler Wallace at Oklahoma State looked pretty good yesterday. For the quarterback position, only one guy really stood out to me. It was Jamie Newman, formerly of Wake Forest, where the Broncos seem to have a kind of a connection. We've taken a lot of Wake Forest players and brought them in over the last couple of years, whether it's Sternad or Sangbassi. So there's kind of a good relationship there. Maybe somebody to keep an eye on. I think Jamie's more of a long-term project than an instant starter at the quarterback position, but he's somebody that if you're the Broncos, maybe you want to take a look at. He's got a big arm, and he plays. He's big, built thick, and plays well. There's a couple of offensive linemen here or there. I thought Quinn Meinerts looked pretty good out of Wisconsin Whitewater, and Dylan Redunce out of North Dakota State. Some smaller school guys that kind of had that nasty edge. Reminds you of Dalton Reisner a little bit, the way they play the game. So, always fun to see guys like that out there.
Yeah, it seems like Jamie Newman has been getting a ton of attention on social media. But Ben, in regards to what you think the Broncos' needs are this year, who has really caught your eye, and who could you see maybe being a potential good fit here?
Well, I think the Broncos need some defensive back, at least depth. You go look at Justin, who's played on the franchise tag this year. We don't know necessarily that he's going to be back. Kareem Jackson is getting up into his 30s. We don't have a lot of safety depth in the corners. Whether or not Bouye is going to be back. So I think a guy like Melifonwu, who's kind of a versatile defensive back out of Syracuse, I thought he played really well in day one. He's a bigger guy. He could kind of do it all. Kind of reminds you a little bit maybe of Will Parks in the sense that you can move him around a little bit, and he can play the corner, he can play the safety, he can kind of play the hybrid role. So he's somebody I thought really excelled yesterday. That's a position I'm going to have my eye on today, but I thought he stood out yesterday.
Yeah, who are you kind of keeping your eye on as the week continues, and who should Broncos fans look for during the game on Saturday?
Well, if you're a Broncos fan, you definitely want to keep an eye on the inside linebackers. You want to keep an eye on the corners, those kind of positions. Right now, my radio partner and I are splitting it up a little bit. Ryan's kind of taking the inside linebackers. I'm kind of taking the corners. So that way we get a 365 on the coverage there. But I think that Melifonwu's one. I think Trey Brown out of Oklahoma, the corner there. You might want to keep your eye on him as well. The corners and the inside linebackers really are. Now, you got to keep in mind during the game that it's very limited offense and they're not allowed to blitz. So some of these defensive stuff, some of the stuff you're seeing out there is not exactly tailored to helping the defense out in these games. But you do want to keep an eye on that. And I think the Broncos are going to be a defensive heavy team since the offense appears to be mostly settled and one of the youngest offenses in the league.
Well, Benjamin, thanks so much for your time and insight from the Senior Bowl down there in Alabama. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat. And for all of you at home, make sure to tune in to NFL Network this Saturday for the Senior Bowl.